Hello plant friends and welcome to my channel. I wish I had more plants. My name is Erica, I love houseplants and that's what I do on this channel. I share my houseplant journey. And today I would like to talk to you about soil, how to make your own soil mix, what goes into soil mixes, what each component in the soil mix does, so you get to know your soil a little bit better and hopefully take care of your plants a little bit easier. So let's jump straight into the video. Okay, so, like I mentioned in the beginning, I decided to make this video about soil for a few reasons. First being because I still consider myself quite a beginner houseplanter. I do have a lot of houseplants, but I'm still going through a bunch of trial and error, and when I just began my journey, I remember it was quite overwhelming to learn about soil, about all these ingredients, and people who are making their own soil mixes, and I don't know, there's so much topics going around about store-bought soil not being so great. You need to add some additives to it to make it work for you and so on. So I just decided to talk about it a little bit today and just talk about each component, well, the most common components that go into the soil mix, how to make your own soil mix, and hopefully if you will learn about each component and what it does, you will be able to make a decision for yourself if that's something that you need and is that something that your plant's going to benefit from. And the second part, why I managed to make this video and why I was able to begin with to make this video is because I got a company reach out to me who are called Sea Botanics, and they offered to send me a bunch of soil, and I am super excited about that. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about this company as the video goes, but I would just like to say that it's a small company of 4 people and they are specializing in a houseplant soil, and they are located in the Netherlands and they are making everything sustainable and growing and harvesting their products sustainably. So I feel extremely lucky to have this opportunity and I just wanted to share that with you guys. So yeah, I have all of these different soil components now because of them, and I get to share them with you and give you all the information that you might need. Okay, so that being said, I guess we can start the video. But actually, before we start, I would like to say that I am not going to talk about hydroponics or growing your plants in hydro, semi-hydro, in water or anything like that, because I don't have experience with that. I don't have any plants that are growing in water like that or in any hydroponics, so I'm not going to talk about that. And everything I'm sharing in this video is just my own experience and my own research. I am in no way a professional in this, so this is just what I've learned throughout the year of my own plant journey, and I'm just going to talk about the most common, the most simple things, so I'm not going to go into like a fancy details, just a beginner's guide to help out hopefully someone. Okay, now we can finally start the video. Okay, so to start off, I would like to talk about soil mixes in general. So I categorized them into like 4 categories, like big chunky groups. So first being aeroid mixes. Soil type number 2 would be a very moisture retaining soil. The third soil mix would be a cactus and succulent soil mix. And the fourth one being the hydroponic ponds and all of that stuff that I really don't know and I have no experience in, so cannot talk about that. This is typically a soil mix that has a lot of chunky amendments in it, that has a lot of air pockets. Usually this soil mix doesn't hold on to water so much. It dries out faster, and again, it really promotes air circulation throughout the roots, and it's best suitable for all aeroids, mostly plants with chunkier roots. Typically, like for example, Monstera would like to go into a chunky aeroid mix, and yeah, this is the most common used soil mix that people use. So typically this is the soil that doesn't have much air pockets in it. It dries out much slower. It retains water better. It's better for like smaller root plants, plants that don't like to dry out so fast, and plants that don't like to dry out between waterings, for example. So it would be for all of your ferns, begonias, calatheas, even carnivorous plants, all of that type of thing. So plants that like to grow in wetter conditions. Yeah. So this type of soil mix usually has a very sharp drainage. It usually has a lot of sand, a lot of rocks in it. It's something that not necessarily holds on to moisture for long, but it really lets the water just drain down through the soil. And again, the moisture doesn't stay in the pot for too long. It's drying out quite fast. And yeah, this is the best soil mixture for your cacti or succulents or the plants who are sensitive to water. And yeah, so that's basically the three major types of soil I'm hearing about and I am involved in and I am using. And yeah, I guess that's it about soil. And now that we know the most common soil types, we can move on to talking about soil base and then all the ingredients that go into that soil. But before that, I would like to introduce you to the company Botanica. Yeah, like I mentioned in the beginning, this company reached out to me, and when I checked them out, I immediately fell in love because, like I said, it's a small business, only 4 people, and they're very passionate about what they're doing. They're doing a lot of research and all of that stuff to be able to make all of these soils, all of the sustainable environmental choices. So I'm really grateful that I have the opportunity to partnership with them. And if you are around in Europe, definitely check them out. You're going to be supporting a small business. And also, if you have a YouTube channel, an Instagram, or any kind of platform where you are talking about houseplants, you can reach out to them and maybe they will partnership with you as well, which is really exciting because I just love small businesses supporting small businesses. It all just good vibes all around. And yeah, the people who are working there, they are hiring people with disabilities, so most likely the soil mix you're going to purchase from them is going to be mixed by somebody who has a disability, which is great because inclusivity, right? That's awesome. And you guys, I have a code so you can use it. It's gonna be right here. And again, for example, they also send me some sphagnum moss, which they're growing locally in the Netherlands and harvesting sustainably. And now that you know who so lovingly sent all of this soil to us, we can talk about it and we can talk what we can make with it. Okay, so now we can talk about the soil base. So any type of soil, just like already a mixed soil in the store you will get, or any kind of a soil base you will get, is typically going to be made out of one of these 3 things. So first would be a peat moss, which is not super great for the environment, and a lot of people are learning about that it's not super great for the environment and are trying to be more sustainable. And once again, the Botanica company, they are not using peat moss at all. It's peat moss free, so that's another really good green thumbs up for them. So yeah, this moss is basically harvested from moss bogs. So if you know what a bog is, it's basically like a watery swampy thing kind of a deal. And in these moss bogs, there's sphagnum moss growing, there's all kinds of bugs and microorganisms and all of that stuff, and it's great for the environment. But to harvest peat moss, you have to drain the bogs completely down, then take off the sphagnum moss that's growing on top of it and harvest what's underneath, because peat moss is basically all the debris, all the layers that's basically sandwiched between the moss that's growing on top and the grounds that are underneath. So it's all made from like decomposing leaves, mosses, all of those kind of materials. So to harvest peat moss, it's a really lengthy process that destroys a lot of good in its way. So yeah, that's why it's really not great for the environment. Plus, when you're using peat moss and it starts breaking down in your soil, it's releasing a lot of CO2, which is not great for our environment as well. So yeah, if you can avoid it, please try to do so, because every little step counts. So yeah, that would be soil base number 1, and I would say it's one of the most common soil bases as well. So then the soil base number 2 would be cocoa peat, which is actually a better alternative for peat moss, and it is not the same thing. It's being extracted out of the coconut. Well, not extracted. So you know how you have a coconut and it has like all of that layer? I don't know how to explain it, but basically it comes from the coconut, and it's a part that we throw out, and we don't have to throw it out because it's great for the plants and you can grow the plants. And yeah, there's a lot of companies who are specializing in harvesting this cocoa peat and also cocoa husk. So that's a great alternative for a peat moss. And yeah, that's a second base that you can have for plant soil base. And then the third base would be worm castings, or just like compost from your garden, or just like from somewhere. And that's more like a natural, organic kind of a soil base. That's the third soil base that you most commonly might see around. So yeah, I would say that these three are something that's most typical for a soil base. And yeah, that's basically what the difference between them are. It's where they come from and how they are harvested and made. Okay, so now that we know that, we can finally move on to talking about the components that you can add into the soil base and make your own soil mix for any land that you have. It can be very specific, so let's talk about that. Okay, so I grouped soil components into 4 categories as well, and the first one being for aeration, then the second one for moisture, the third one being for drainage, and the fourth one being for propagation. I thought I'm gonna throw it in there just for fun because propagation is always super fun. I chose 3 most common ingredients for each category just so it wouldn't be too much or too little, and these are all most common components anyways. So yeah, let's start. Let's start for the components for aeration. So typically you would want to use such components for, of course, aerating your soil. So creating more air pockets in your soil mix, making it chunkier, and it's best for all the aeroid mix. So the first most common component would be perlite. So I'm pretty sure a lot of you have heard of perlite or had some kind of encounter with it. And it's usually white. It comes in a few different sizes. So chunkier perlite and smaller perlite. It's super light. It's great for aeration. The only minus that I have is that when you are watering your soil, the perlite tends to rise up over time and it all just pulls up at the top of your soil, which doesn't look too great. And also, I wish that the perlite would stay in the soil where it can serve a purpose rather than rising to the top and just staying there. But yeah, perlite is very commonly used. It's great for aerating your soil. The good thing about adding your own components in the soil is that you get to adjust the level of amount you want to put into your soil mix. The second most used aeration kind of a type component would be orchid bark. And I have a nice bag of it right here, and it also comes in all of different sizes, and it comes in a small size, medium, or large, so it depends on how old your plant is, how big your plant is, how big of an air pocket you want it to have. So for big Monstera deliciosa, you could use big chunky orchid bark pieces. And do not mix orchid bark with cocoa husk because they can be quite similar looking and you might think, oh, it serves the same purpose, but orchid bark doesn't hold moisture too long, so it dries out quite fast, while cocoa husk really holds onto moisture. So that's the main difference between orchid bark and cocoa husk, and that's how you know which one you want to use in your soil mix. So it also depends on how often you water your plants, if you are overwaterer or if you are underwaterer. That's how you can decide which ingredient you want to use in your soil mix. So I really like to use orchid bark, even though I am an underwaterer, but I just like the way it looks. I like how chunky it is. Okay, and the third ingredient that you can use for aerating your soil, it's a bit less used over in common use, but you can use leca balls. And they are quite big, quite chunky, and they also come in different shapes sometimes. So you can have like more organic shapes, which are gonna be like more rock looking, or you can have just like pebbles, balls that are just all around and cylindrical. So yeah, like I said, this is not the most common used ingredient, but it is something you can use. Sometimes I use it, and it's made out of clays. It also holds onto moisture for a little bit, but not for too long, so similar like orchid bark. And yeah, I think it's a great alternative if you don't have orchid bark under your hand and you do have leca balls, because sometimes that is much more available than orchid bark or perlite or something. You can definitely use leca balls. Okay, now let's talk for components that are going to hold moisture into your soil for longer. So the first one would be cocoa husk that I was just talking about. So if you want your mix to be chunky but still retain moisture quite well, then you can replace your orchid bark or leca balls or anything that in that manner with cocoa husk, because like I said, it really sponges the moisture and holds onto it for a while. So that is very nice and versatile component, I would say. I've never used it personally because I just never came across it to get it, so I never did. But yeah, you can definitely do that, and it's really gonna improve your soil. So then component number 2 would be sphagnum moss. So I've never owned sphagnum moss as well, but I ordered them from Sea Botanica and I am super excited to try it out. And also I just want to appreciate this bag because look, it has some literally green moss in there. Like, how amazing is that? I kind of want to try to grow it, you know, put it in terrarium and try to grow my own moss, but okay, anyways, that's off topic. You can definitely use sphagnum moss in your soil mix, and sphagnum moss is known to retain water super well. It's literally like a sponge. It's like nature's sponge. You can soak it in water and it's just gonna hold onto that water for so long. Sphagnum moss is great for potting up your orchids, for example. Mix it with orchid bark and this, and your orchids should be just super happy. It's really, really, really great for moisture retaining. Sphagnum moss is also great for not allowing your soil to compact. So you know how after a while the soil in the pot can get quite hard and compact? Sphagnum moss should prevent that from happening because it's very fluffy naturally. It's very, spongy. So yeah, and it's just super versatile. I'm gonna talk about sphagnum moss a little bit later on as well. And the third component I would like to talk about that's great for retaining moisture is vermiculite. It's super light, it's maybe even lighter than perlite. And the main differences between perlite and vermiculite is that perlite really crumbles into dust and vermiculite does that less, and perlite doesn't hold on to water as much as vermiculite does. So vermiculite really, really holds on to water well, just like it soaks it up and it holds on to that water for long, and it also holds on to nutrition, so it's great. Again, it's also super versatile. You can propagate plants in vermiculite. I'm also going to try that out because I never did and I was always really curious. I'm super happy to be able to have this bag of vermiculite, and yeah, it's super lightweighted. It also adds great texture to your soil, so it also doesn't allow it to compact, but it also aerates your soil. It adds a little bit of drainage, but it also holds onto water really, really well. So again, I would recommend using vermiculite if you want your soil mix to be more moisture retaining. Okay, So now we covered aeration and moisture, and now I would like to talk about drainage. So drainage is really important for all the plants actually, but mostly you really want your soil to be draining well for all the cacti and succulents, and I know I'm repeating myself here, but that's really important. And some additives for your soil to make it better draining would be pumice, for example. And it's kind of a rock and it's actually great to add drainage to your soil. Yeah, that's the best part of it, and it also really improves the quality of your soil. So the texture, again, it just adds more aeration, which is always great and preferred for a plant. It's also great for using as a top layer for decorations, so it's again also very versatile, but also it serves a great purpose. Then the second ingredient you could use is horticultural sand. That's a tongue twister, but it's basically sand. So sand is great for drainage. It's very coarse and it allows the water just to flush through the whole pot and the whole soil instead of hoarding that water and making it like mushy and soggy at the bottom of your pot, which you always want to avoid. So adding sand to your soil mixes, for example, for carnivorous plants or the same cacti or any types of plants that like more of a deserty type of soil, sand is your best friend. You will find sand in all of the cactus mixes you will buy from the store, and there's a reason for that. It's because it's super great draining and it's very small. It can also be used to support your heavier plants or like older plants with like, I don't know, sensitive roots and stuff like that. So it's great for that. And the third thing you can use is lava rocks or like lava gravel, that kind of stuff. So it also adds a lot of drainage to your soil. It just allows that water to flush through, and it also holds onto water a little bit. So if you want your soil to be like super well draining but still kind of retain some moisture, then you can definitely try out some lava rocks. And I feel like that's gonna add to your soil consistency and overall quality really much. And yeah, that's something you can definitely add into your soil if that's something you recognize that your plants might need. Okay, and now the last topic, some propagation methods. And the reason I decided to add it in is because, yeah, you can also use soil for propagation. Instead of using just like a normal soil, you can always try to propagate your plants in perlite or vermiculite. So they both serve similar purpose for propagating plants. Basically, you just put a layer of perlite or vermiculite, then fill it up till half with water and stuck your propagations in there, and it's just going to supplement your propagations with water throughout its whole journey of growing roots, because it's very wicking water. So your roots are not gonna sit directly in the water, but they are gonna grow in moist conditions. So that is awesome and that is great. You can definitely try out this method. I have propagated plants in perlite a lot and it always works out great. So that's awesome. The second thing you can use is sphagnum moss, and we already talked about sphagnum moss, but it is great for holding water, and that's the reason why it's so great for propagations, and it's very commonly used for propagations as well. The only problem I see with it is when you grow fine roots in sphagnum moss and you want to transfer it into soil, it is so difficult to remove the moss. And I've never had to do it myself, but I've seen countless of videos of people struggling with it. So that's just something you should think about if that's what you're going to be using. But let's say the same monstera, if you want to propagate it, it should not be any problems, because monstera roots are very janky, so I feel like it shouldn't be any problems. But I'm definitely going to give it a try and I'm super excited. But yeah, that's a great method to propagate your plants. And the third method, I actually wrote down water, because I feel like propagating in water is so fun, mostly because you can see all the roots growing, everything happening. It's so easy. All you need to do is a container, some water, and a propagation. You put it in and that's all. The only minus side of this is that water usually doesn't hold much nutrition, so you have to replace the water from time to time or try to add some liquid fertilizer to the water so that your plants wouldn't go completely nutritious free, because that's also not great for the plants. And also, of course, as a bonus, you can definitely propagate plants in soil medium, and I've done that as well. I have propagated some plants in cocoa peat, and it's doing wonders, and it's growing very nice, and it's also very easy later on to transfer these plants into the soil mix, so it doesn't go through the shock of transferring plants from the water to the soil. And yeah, so that's basically what I wanted to share with you today about all of the soils and all of the ingredients, and I really hope that you learned something new. And now we can finally say goodbye. So that was it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed it. I really hope that you learned something new and that this video was interesting. Please let me know in the comments below what you thought. And if you have some additional information, or if there is something you want to share, any tips for beginners and beginning houseplant lovers, please share it in the comments as well, because I really feel that sharing is caring, and it really helps grow the community, and it takes out the stress of owning plants and making mistakes, because everybody makes mistakes with growing plants. And I really want to thank one more time to Sea Botanica for partnershiping with me, because I am really grateful. I already love this company, and for sure I'm going to be ordering from them again. I really feel like they're moving towards a greater goal, and it's inspiring me to keep growing and reaching my dreams, because I see other people doing it, and I just feel like it's really awesome. And I'm going to be linking their store down below. Definitely reach out. Plus, most of the information you've heard from this video, I actually learned from their website, and I feel like that is great, because underneath every ingredient or every soil mix that they are selling, they also describe on what it's used for, what it's great for, and how it can improve your soil mix. So definitely check them out. You're gonna learn a lot, because I know I did, and I feel like that's also a great page for beginner plant parents. So thank you so much, Sea Botanica, one more time. And yes, you know the drill. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and also maybe consider subscribing to my channel and letting me grow it out and reach for my dreams. Thank you so much. And now I feel like I know all of this about the soil and stuff. I kind of wish I had more plants so I could plant them and use these tips for. See you next time, guys. I love you.